If you are a die-hard vintage Fender fan, go get your pearls and be ready to clutch them, because today I am going over 10 things that Leo got wrong. Hey everybody, it is Aaron at Warmoth, and among vintage Fender fans, there's kind of this saying, Leo got it right the first time, and he absolutely got a lot right the first time. The only evidence you really need is the fact that his designs are still being manufactured and still in high demand 70 whatever years down the road. So yeah, he got a lot right the first time. And a lot of the things that he designed have been improved on, but there's a huge difference between improving, making these iterative improvements to something and inventing it from nothing. So all props to Leo Fender. This is not to throw shade at him. It's just to kind of poke fun at the Leo got it right the first time thing. And it's all in good fun. It's all tongue in cheek. So don't get too upset. We can acknowledge that Leo got so much right, but he also got some things wrong. And so, and by the way, some of those things have since been improved, but others strangely are still there. And of course, this is all my opinion. But with all that said, let's jump into number 10, the thumb rest, aka the tug bar below the strings on Fender P basses. Now this one doesn't have one, but here's a picture of one that does. And for the life of me, I guess that you are supposed to hold on to that bar and pick with your thumb. I'm sure there are bassists out there that use it that way. I'm sure the bass players that are watching this will be quick to point them out to me. But in general, that just seems like a completely useless artifact. Now having a thumb rest up here makes more sense, but the one down here, nah, that was pretty much wrong right out of the gate. Number 9, the Tele input cup. Now this Warmoth Tele replacement body has a square side jack on it, which is what you see a lot now, or you see the Electra socket. But the original Tele input cup was basically a cup that was just held in place by a kind of a spring, and it would always work loose over time. It was just a horrible design. It's mostly been weeded out of the guitar gene pool now. But yeah, boy, that was not right from the get-go. Number 8, shared saddles on the Tele bridge and even the earliest P-bass bridges. They were originally just 3 brass barrels. Impossible to intonate. Having a separate adjustable saddle for every string makes much more sense. Since those earliest days, there have been improvements to the barrels now so that they do intonate properly. But man, right out of the gate, ooh, that was not the best. Number 7, on the earliest Strats, there was no tone control for the pickup that needed it the most, the bridge pickup. These two pickups had a tone control, but this one just ran free and it could pop your eardrum if you weren't careful. Number 6, the earliest Strats only had a 3-way blade switch, so you could only use one pickup at a time. It was only when guitarists noticed that if you kind of stuck the switch in those in-between positions, you could get those cool 2 and 4 positions, and so later the 5-way switch was incorporated. But yeah, on the earliest Stratocasters, just a 3-way blade switch. Number 5, forever confusing guitarists everywhere by using the words vibrato and tremolo wrong. Leo called this a tremolo bar when it's actually a vibrato bar, and on many of his amps he labeled it a vibrato effect when it's actually a tremolo effect. I'm sure as many of you know, tremolo is a modulation in volume and vibrato is a modulation in pitch. This modulates pitch, so it should be called a vibrato bar, and the effect on the Fender amps is actually a modulation in volume, so it should be called a tremolo, but he did them both backwards. And it still hasn't been fixed on any of those Fender products. It's just become almost a part of the lore now. And by the way, he called this a synchronized tremolo, and many people have wondered what the word synchronized referred to. I think it's because back in the day, mini tremolo bars, to use the misnomer, had separate bridge and tailpiece, but Leo incorporated the tailpiece into the trem block right there, and since they move together, he called it synchronized. That's my speculation. Number 4, ashtray bridge covers on the first tellies on jazz basses and P basses. They all had these ashtray covers. If you're not familiar with the term, it's because they got taken off so often and turned over and used as an ashtray. And basically they're like a chrome cover that went over the bridge or went over the pickup, and they look super cool in sort of that, you know, kind of retro futuristic Raymond Louis kind of way. But man, they made playing a total pain in the butt, and they almost always just got ripped off and used as ashtrays or just lost. So yeah, that was probably a mistake. Number 3, 7¼ inch fretboard radius. And I know that a lot of you are already putting your dukes up over this one, maybe John Mayer most of all, because all of his Silver Sky guitars have a 7¼ inch fretboard radius. But most guitar players prefer a bigger radius, and that's why you see so many Fender products and all other products with larger fretboard radii now. I think Fender uses 9.5 on most of their modern Strats and Tellies. My personal favorite is 10, but you see compound radius. You see all kinds of other stuff now. 7¼ is really relegated to the vintage crowd now. Number 2, a truss rod adjustment at the heel. Nobody likes that. In fact, some of Leo's earliest designs didn't even have a truss rod, and then when he realized that it was pretty much necessary, he incorporated one, but the adjustment nut was at the heel, clear under there. You don't want to have to pop the neck off and tilt it back to adjust something so basic. In most subsequent designs, Fender now puts the adjustment nut at the headstock, but those earliest ones had it at the heel, and it was just not the best design out of the gate. And number 1, and this is my biggest pet peeve by far, Leo had this habit of cramming the volume knob way too close to other stuff on his designs. On the Strat, he crammed the volume knob clear up next to the lead pickup, so you can't palm mute without this thing getting in the way. And on his Tele design, he crammed the volume knob clear up next to the selector switch. I mean, you've got the control plate here, you've got a selector switch on one side and a tone knob on the other side, and all this space in between, but rather than putting it in the center, he put it right up next to the switch, so it's just incredibly inconvenient. Fortunately for the Tele control plate, there are a lot of companies that sell alternate control plates. You probably can't tell on this one, but this control plate I got from Philadelphia Luthier, and they moved the volume knob position away from the selector switch by like 3/4 inch, and it makes all the difference in the world. I don't know if you can tell the difference just by looking at these two, but it makes a huge difference when your fingers can fit in there. And on Strat style guitars, I solve it by just cutting my own pickguard with only 2 controls so I can get that volume knob down out of the way to a better position. And there are a few other things I could have probably mentioned too. For example, the string spacing is a little too wide for the width of the fretboard up here, and so the strings get a little close to the edges, or mounting the Tele neck pickup to the body rather than suspending it from the pickguard, or 21 frets instead of 22 with an overhang, or the square heel, or marketing the Fender Bassman as a bass amp when it actually became a legendary guitar amp. And again, this is not to overshadow the fact that Leo got the lion's share of everything right. It's just absolutely legendary designs, the most popular guitar shapes and bass shapes in the history of electronic or electric music. But it's fun to look at these things from a different perspective and see what's been improved on or what maybe should be improved on. I'm really curious to get your take. Do you agree with all of my picks, or do you think I'm off my rocker on some of these? Some of them I would dig a foxhole over, like, you know, the putting the volume knob too close to the pickup or too close to the selector switch on a Tele style guitar. Man, I will die on that hill. Others, I'm not as, I don't lean into them as much. Although I think that all 10 things I mentioned could have been improved. But again, I want to know your opinion. So leave it in the comments. If you have other things you think Leo got wrong, make sure you and say so. If you think that I am crazy, make sure and say that too nicely. And in the meantime, if you want to know more about Warmoth's Strat replacement bodies, Tele replacement bodies, Strat or Tele replacement necks, bridges, hardware, pickups, tools, merch, or any of the other stuff we offer, make sure and go to the Warmoth website. It's all there. If you still have questions, give our customer service reps a call. They're always eager to help. And until next time, keep on picking.